you remember in the beginning of the pandemic, everybody wanted to teach online, right? Everybody was trying to teach on Zoom, and I jumped in on it. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll try it because my students need to socialize too, you know. So I started teaching on Zoom, and what's that? It was actually the worst part of my online course because nobody really wanted to go to that. You know, like I'd have like 2 students, 3 students out of like the, you know, the many that were actually taking the course, like nobody was really coming. And that's when I realized like, okay, like it's not the same as being in person.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the Enculturation podcast, where we aim to make learning about the world fun, engaging, and accessible, helping you stay tuned, stay curious. So today I have the absolute honor of welcoming my good friend Jardy Santiago. He is the creator of housedance.com. He's been teaching house dance tutorials on YouTube since 2009 with over 86,000 subscribers. He has performed and taught in the United States, Russia, France, Belgium, Czech Republic, Japan, Philippines, and the list goes on. Welcome, Jardy.
Hey, how's it going, Vin? Really happy to be here. And yeah, it's an honor to be the second person in your podcast.
Yeah, welcome to the show. All right, so tell me a little bit about your background.
My background. So how I started dancing in 1993, and my first dance form that I partook in is b-boying. So basically, growing up, I was living in the Philippines until I was 9 years old, and when I was 9 years old, I moved to the U.S., but ever since I could remember, dance has always been there. Like it's always been something that's intrigued me. Actually, performing in general has always been something that I just really thought like I really wanted to be a performer. So from a young age, dance has always been around me, and I remember when I was like probably 6 years old, I was somewhere in the Philippines in kind of like in the provinces, which is what they call like not the city. So I was just like at like a relative's house, and I attempted to do a head spin because I saw that being done on TV. And I nearly broke my neck. And after that, I was like, oh, wow, this stuff must take practice. You can't just like do it, you know? So after that, I moved to the US, and kind of like dance wasn't something that was, a dancer wasn't something I thought I'd be eventually. But, you know, like everybody at the time wanted to learn how to dance. So eventually I gave in. I'm like, okay, you know, I gotta learn this, or I'm not gonna be with whatever everybody is doing, you know. So in 1993, I was about probably 14, 15 years old. I started learning how to b-boy, how to break dance. So, which I don't call it break dancing. I call it either breaking or b-boying. But you know, it's just to people who don't know what b-boying and breaking is. So, I started to just learn on my own. A lot of the things I learned on my own, and I'm not saying like people don't teach me, but and people don't guide me. But what it is, I usually get videos and I copy from those videos. And at the time, there were these videos from the 80s.
So by videos during this time period, you're talking about VHS tapes.
Yes. No YouTube, because this was like a long time ago. So VHS, even Betamax, if you remember what that is.
Yes.
So it was VHS and some Betamax tapes. I did have some Betamax tapes now that I remember it. So I had both of those, and I was watching those to learn from, and it was tough. But for some reason, because of the generation back then, our attention spans were longer, and we were more patient with learning things because not everything was easily accessible. So whatever we had come to us, we just practiced the hell out of it, and we knew it was going to take hard work to get somewhere in whatever art form we were doing, where we were trying to learn. So with b-boying, I grew up around the time I was like not a strong kid. So I had to like really practice to get somewhere. But after like a year of b-boying, I was actually pretty decent, doing some like really hard moves, really fast. But then after a year of b-boying, I got into an accident, and a lot of the people who learn from me actually know of this, but I basically destroyed my inner ear with a Q-tip.
Wait, so the accident was with the Q-tip and not like a car accident or?
No, not at all. No,
okay.
This is not one of those accidents, but it was a stupid accident where basically I was trying to scare my little brother when he was coming into the room I was in, and I was cleaning my ear with a Q-tip. And when he came in, I just kind of jerked my head. And when I jerked my head, I didn't know I kind of wasn't aware that I was right next to a wall. And I hit my head into the wall with the Q-tip still in my ear, and it pushed it all the way in. And to this day, actually, I don't remember which ear it is. I think it's the left one. I think it's the left one, and it just destroyed my eardrum. And for some reason, when I came back, this was in the Philippines again during a trip. So we were there for like probably a month or something like that. And so when I came back, and it was like time to like get back into like, time to start practicing, vacation's over. For some reason, I never got my b-boying back, and it was like kind of just lost. And it was very hard for me to get back into it. And my sense of balance was like different. So,
I've heard that there's a liquid inside our ear that dictates whether we feel oriented or disoriented. And
exactly. Yeah.
when it moves or changes, it can offset our balance. So you think it's because of that the balance thing went away?
Yeah, I really think it's that, because my equilibrium was like totally off from then on. So when that started happening, I started around the time I started getting into hip hop dance. And hip hop dance, I don't mean b-boying, but I mean like hip hop dance that people were doing in the 90s.
So can you speak a little bit about what drew you to b-boying, and was that same appeal in hip hop dance, or like why was that the next dance of all the dances? Was it because of accessibility, or because of the party culture?
Yeah. Or, the way I remember is that I was getting into these dances because it was like all around me. So b-boying was around me all the time because it seemed like 90% of my school was doing it. Like everybody was doing it. Everybody, even like, the so-called academic, the nerds, the nerds were doing it. So everybody was like, and at the time I was one of those nerds, and everybody, like, it was all around me, and it was a culture at the time. I mean, like, besides the 80s, kind of b-boying made a kind of like this, it reemerged in the early 90s. So that's how I got into it. I just wanted to fit in at first, basically.
Yeah. So did everybody have access to these tapes, or like how did, like, you had access to the tapes, right? And how did you even get access to those tapes? Was it through a certain network that you had access to, or was it a more common videos like what was it called, Beat Street, Breakin'?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I actually learned about Beat Street and Breakin',
Mm-hmm.
so those were two. But I remember getting some footage that was hard to come by at the same time, and I don't remember how I got them. But I have a feeling that part of it was from my cousins. I had cousins that were about, I would say, 8 years older than me, who were into it in the 80s. So by the time the 90s came around, they weren't into it anymore. and I think I just like borrowed their tapes, their videotapes, and I said like, I'm gonna make use of these, you know. And that's part of where I got my tapes was from my cousins. Now that I remember, yeah. So part of it was from my cousins. The other, I don't remember. But I'm not sure if everybody had access to them. But because everybody or a lot of people were getting into these dances at the time, it was easy to find somebody who was doing it already to teach you.
So it's very social.
Yeah, and it was very social. But for me, being the embarrassed introvert that I am, I don't like learning. I didn't like learning in front of people. I didn't like I didn't like to start over in front of people, even back then. So I basically, that's why I taught myself. I didn't want to come out until I was ready to show some stuff. And it took a lot of hard work, took a lot of, and luckily at the time, because of, the teenage bodies, they don't get injured nearly as much as older bodies.
Yeah, you could get injured. And
yeah, everything is so flexible. So I don't even remember really getting injured for the majority of when I was learning. I was just like pushing my body to the limits at the time, practicing at least 4 hours a day, every day, just to get these moves down, you know? So after that, how I got into hip hop dance is, once you get into b-boying, you start seeing other things around you, because there are other dancers that are out there. And I started noticing other people doing other types of dances. So I got into it that way. Also, at the time, I had a friend who's still my friend to this day. His name is Chang, and he was into b-boying and hip hop dance as well. And actually, the funny thing is, me and Chang used to be like, I used to hate the guy. We used to like really dislike each other, right? And several times I've wanted to fight him. But one day we just became friends, and we became lifelong friends after that. For some reason, I was even the best man at his wedding, and he showed me videos of hip hop dance and basically learned along with me. So after that, I got into hip hop dance, and it was working out a lot better for where I was at the time after the injury, because I didn't have to do any crazy spinning, So it was something that I got really passionate about, and a lot of it is really based on the music at the time that I was listening to. So the music was making me move in these ways because that's how I saw people moving to them. So in a way, I got very lucky that there was always somebody that was already learning it, that was willing to share the stuff, like the footage that they had. And also at the time, it was just a lifestyle for a lot of people to be dancing. It was like all over the schools, and it wasn't just a niche thing like, oh, there are the dancers. It's more like everybody here like knows something, which you don't really find these days, I'm not in school anymore, so I wouldn't know, but I have a feeling that it's not like that anymore.
Yeah, when I went to high school, I definitely remember the music and dance, not necessarily hip hop, but other styles, was like all throughout the whole school. And maybe the rules changed or it got more strict, but now there's things like you can't be too loud or you can't have these things. I remember there was a local radio station in San Diego that used to play music every Friday or something, right? And there would be even ciphers or circles or even battles at school during lunch.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember those too.
Yeah. Okay, so what was your experience in hip hop dance, and how did you find house from that?
With hip hop dance, man, there was a lot. Basically, hip hop dance was also around me a lot, and so I was able to learn from people just by being there. I just like observed and copied and did a lot of copying until like I found what would be like later versions of myself within the dance. And I'm sorry. What was the question? Right. I kind of went off on a tangent there.
It's all good.
But
The question was, what was your experience in hip hop dance? Was it different from b-boying?
oh,
And
okay.
also, how did you eventually find house from that?
Oh, okay. How I found house. Okay. I'm gonna try not to lose that thought. But because I was in hip hop, the people that I was imitating, eventually, at first it was like local folks that I was like learning from, imitating, and then I found the people who I look up to now still.
Local, as in
Uh,
the Bay Area logo?
no, the New York dancers, basically. Yeah,
Okay,
the New
okay.
York pioneers, like Mop Top, Brian Green.
So when you say local, like domestic to United States versus like overseas.
No, local as in like local around my area,
Okay, okay,
because there were dancers everywhere. Remember,
okay.
so I was able to find people that were just around me at the time,
Yeah,
and then after that, it became more like other side of the country
okay.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like people like Elite Force. Those are the people that I started seeing in these videos. Because before, in the beginning, when I first started getting into hip hop dance, I was given a lot of Japanese footage for some reason. So I was learning from these like Japanese videos at first, and then eventually I got introduced to the famous documentary Wreck and Shop, Live from Brooklyn, and that one was when it really, really started for me, when my journey started there, to where I am now, because I'm still like in touch with these people that I learned from. Eventually got to meet them, things like that. But I started seeing New York dancers, and I started imitating those New York dancers. And because most, not gonna say all, because I don't know, but pretty much most of the dancers that I was learning hip hop from in these videos also danced to house music, and they danced house dance. So it was only natural for me to go from hip hop to house, because everybody that I was watching was also doing that.
So in a way, it was introduced to you through the social dance circle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Well, as a dancer coming from the 90s, it was only social. It wasn't done in a studio. And in fact, I was like one of the first people in California to start teaching it in studios within California. I'm sure that New Yorkers also came in and tried to teach, but within California, I was one of the first. The only one I could say probably beat me to the punch in that would be Odie. And, because Odie actually gave me his job at one of the first studios I taught at, Dance Attack. So he was teaching there initially, and then he said, like, you can take over when I was ready to teach.
Mm-hmm.
So me and him were like two of the first house dance teachers in California. And yeah, so what's that? That's kind of like a short summary of how I got into house dance. But I got to also say that if it wasn't for the group that I was in, Soul Sector, that was the people in that group were the ones that kind of like helped me get into the dance too. Because at first I didn't even notice that it was there was a separate dance, that there was a separate dance. Because in the documentary, Wreck and Shop Live from Brooklyn, a lot of the dances were just, basically it was a hip hop documentary. And a lot of the house dancing was done over hip hop. So I thought it was just all hip hop dance.
Mm-hmm.
Until I was told, like later on, like, hey, there's house dance too. And I was like, what? I got to see that. And then after that, I started learning more house. And in Soul Sector, I was actually like the third person to start learning house dance. No, not the third. There were more house dancers in the group, but in terms of like learning from these videos, the third one. I hope, I hope that was enough as an answer. But
Yeah,
probably missing a few things there.
that was great. So tell me about Soul Sector, and also who were some of your inspirations or teachers over the years?
Okay, so Soul Sector, Soul Sector, I was in the group Soul Sector from 99, maybe 2000 actually, 2000 to 2009. So around 10 years, I was affiliated with the dance group. And after 2009, people grow up and people grow apart. And, it wasn't such a big thing in our lives anymore to be in Soul Sector. But I got into it in around 2000. And I remember growing a lot being in that group because the members of Soul Sector basically introduced me to the New York dancers that I know now. And the New York dancers that are basically like, 10 years my senior, they're the ones that I was learning from. With Soul Sector, 10 years, and then, well, actually, I'm not sure if I'm going to go over the history of Soul Sector right now, but what was the other part of the question?
So the other part of the question is, who were some of your teachers or
Oh.
inspirations over the years?
Yeah. Man. Okay. So there's a lot. When it came to house dance, because before house dance, I considered myself to be self-taught because I was learning from the culture around me, which is how most people learned back in the day. So back then, a lot of people learned through what I like to call, like I jokingly call it osmosis, like you're just around and you learn, you're not really taught anything. And for me, that's how I learned initially. And then later on, I started learning from people who I consider even like my mentors and teachers now, even though they've stopped teaching me a long time ago. So in the beginning, I think the very first person to ever teach me anything after I learned some house dance already through videos and also my dance group is Brooklyn Terry. And I believe we were in Philadelphia at the time. And basically my crewmate, Mikey Disco, brought me to Philly. And he just said, like, go dance with Terry. I was like, okay. And then it was just me and Terry in a studio, and he was starting to show me some stuff. So actually, he taught me how to do the scribble foot, and he showed me how he did his loose legs. And I'm highly influenced by Terry. Like, I basically wanted to be him when I first started doing house dance. So it was surreal to like be able to like be taught a few moves by him. So that was, when you're copying stuff from videos, when you see the person that you're trying to imitate in person after copying their videos, it kind of fills in that piece of the puzzle that you're missing, because you can't get everything through videos. You can get a lot, but not everything.
Okay, so you mentioned Brooklyn Terry being one of the earliest, if not first, people within the house side to bring you into the scene, and the steps were Scribblefoot. Were there any other people from the scene, or was he the kind of the primary person that took you under his wing over the years?
Oh, well, in terms of Terry, he didn't really have to take me under his wing.
Okay.
Because like, I was imitating him so much that it was like he was teaching me along the way anyways, He did help me a lot though. I remember there was this one weekend I was in New York, and I was by myself at the time. I think I went before the rest of my crew did. I was separated from them, but I stayed with Terry for a night. He brought me to like an underground club. I think it was maybe a bar in somewhere, I believe it was in Brooklyn. I don't even remember much about it, but we had this talk basically where, as a beginner, you say a lot of things where you think you know what you're talking about. But Terry taught me a lot that night that, taught me that there was a lot I didn't know, because he would, when I would say something, he's like, I don't know about that, and here's what I think. And I'm like, wow, I do have a lot to learn. So I got to also go back and forth with him that night. And, just being able to dance with somebody that you look up to, it's awesome, because like you really take in what they're doing. Like the vibe is there and you learn a lot just by being in their presence.
If you happen to remember what might have been some of those things that where Terry showed you a different opinion on.
Honestly, I don't remember.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been such a long time. And eventually, I'm pretty sure I learned all these things already later on. The way I look at learning is that you're not ready to see it until you're ready to see it. So somebody could tell you a lot of things, and it's not really going to click until it clicks with you, until it clicks with your body and with the way where you're at the moment. So Terry, like I said, he didn't really, aside from me taking his class occasionally and me keeping in touch with him, he didn't really go out of his way to like teach me stuff. I just like, whenever he was around, I just like kind of took him in, you know what I mean? As in took his whole, everything he did, and just kind of like really internalized it, But I have a lot of people to thank in regards to where I am now. One of my earlier teachers too is Cricket. So Cricket, originally from Philly and now a New Yorker, he taught me a lot, and he taught me a lot on the mental side of house dance. He basically was teaching me a lot of the stuff about how New Yorkers kind of thought, even down to like, here's the posture that they use when it comes to house dance. So it wasn't like individual steps, but it was the mentality of house dance. And at first, funny thing was, I was brushing away all his teachings too. Oh, well, not too, like I just didn't understand at first. So when a lot of the stuff he would tell me, like one time he said like, hey, you got a lot of steps and you got a lot of crazy footwork, but it looks like just one run. What's that when you don't have a period?
Run-on sentence.
Run-on sentence. I don't know how I forgot that. Like basically, he said whenever you dance, it looks like a run-on sentence. It just keeps going. You don't do punctuations, no periods. And at first, I was like, must be my style then, and I just brushed it off. So he tried to teach me a lot of things, and like I said before, you're not ready to see it until you're ready. And basically, maybe months later, years later, I don't know, I started learning all the stuff that he was trying to tell me little by little. And eventually I hit him up and I said, like, you were right. I admitted to him, like, you're right. All the stuff you were telling me, on point, because I finally learned it, So Cricket was that for me. Like, he was like, kind of like really built a good base in terms of just like how to interpret the stuff that I was looking at.
Do you think you started learning it after the fact because your eyes and mind was just more sensitive to what he was saying and able to pick it up, or did something make those points more obvious to you?
Honestly, in the beginning, I was really just brushing off a lot of stuff Cricket said, and I didn't believe him. So it wasn't because he said it, because I wasn't really thinking about those things. I was just basically thinking like, oh yeah, whatever, whatever, Cricket. But, as I learned more about the dance, because I was coming from hip hop and b-boying. So in a way, I already knew how to dance. I just didn't have every piece of the puzzle when it came to house dance. So I was like kind of just filling in those pieces with my own experience, which is cool, but I wasn't learning the full dance. I didn't learn the full dance yet, but I was acting like I knew, which is so common. You know what I mean? When people are learning, they think they know already until they learn more. That makes them realize like, I don't know much at all, So when I started learning these things on my own, that's when it finally clicked on me clicked to me that Cricket knew what he was talking about the whole time, of course, After that, like something I say to cricket once in a while, actually, yeah, I've said it once and it was recent. Is that after that, I never questioned cricket again because he knows what he's talking about. Like, the talks we've had, he knows, like he is a house dance historian. I'm more of a how to break down the moves kind of guy, but he's a true historian when it comes to house dance. He really pays attention. So cricket taught me a lot, but I can't forget that one of my most important teachers when it comes to the movement is this dancer named Abdul. And Abdul is, I have not seen him dance in a while from the last time. Yeah, it's been so long but we still keep in touch on Instagram. He was from Philly too. And, but he moved to Oakland. And around the time, it was 2015, 16, around that time, I was going to clubs every week. And there was this place called Lucas Lounge in Oakland, which was a primarily Black club that had dance circles, dance ciphers in it every week. And that's because the dancers would go there, including Abdul, and basically just get down. I was there all the time. And from there, I watched Abdul every week for about 2 years. And, like I really needed that because house dance, back then it wasn't everywhere yet. It wasn't like what it is now. Now, so many people know house dance, but back then it was like still in its infancy in California. In California, not everybody knew what house dance was. They knew what dancing to house was, but not like this particular dance form that came from New York dancers. So because Abdul was from the East Coast, he had the same type of movement. And it's that movement that a lot of people would call lofting. He did that style or that dance form, and dancing with him every week while learning how to do my house dance and getting that style into my system by watching him all the time really helped me become who I am today, because I tried my best to like copy him too, because he had that essence that I was looking for.
So what impacts or influence did Abdul have on you? Was it another mental change, or was there like a more like a physical change, whether your style got softer or harder or different breakdowns and transitions?
The things I learned from him were the flowy movements in what I do now. The flowy, the soft, not the fast and furious stuff. You know what I mean? It's the soft, flowy movements. A lot of the transitions that I use now, I still use today because of him. Actually, one of the main movements that I'm known for, I'm not sure if people like kind of, when they think of me, they think of that movement. But what I'm saying is like, it's a movement that I can say like it's that I mostly do, that I don't see many people do. I got it actually from Abdul, and it's still stuck with me. How many years has it been? Wait, did I say 2015, 16? I'm so sorry. I meant 2005 and 2006. Oh my gosh.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, has the time gone? Okay, 2005, 2006 was when I was dancing a lot with Abdul. What am I thinking? Anyways, he impacted my movement a lot. It's the movement, mentality too, but he didn't really say much to me in terms of that. I've tried to get him to teach me. I've asked him like, take me under your wing. Let me come over. You teach me some stuff. But Abdul is from what I learned, he doesn't teach by talking. He just teaches you by being. Like he was there, and then I had to learn from him through, that whole osmosis thing again. I just had to be around him.
So somebody who's just leading by example.
Yeah, that's Abdul. And with him, in terms of my style now, it's like it just kind of, he had a lasting impact on my style. It's still with me now, because with him, it's not like I set out to be Abdul, but I was around him so much that I took in a lot of his essence, and I learned a lot of my movements from him.
What are some fun facts and achievements that you've obtained throughout the years with your teaching career, specifically the online portion?
Oh yeah, I've been really I've been really honored to be able to teach all over the world because of house dance, and in terms of in person. But online, I really got to teach around the world. But in terms of what I feel are accomplishments, I was hearing you earlier introduce me, and I knew I was gonna end up saying this. But when you said 86,000 subscribers, it feels like nothing now, because with like TikTok, people are getting like so many. But at the time, that was a lot for YouTube. And basically, without tooting my horn too hard, I was like pretty much the first person to really teach house dance tutorials on YouTube, especially for free, because at the time people were kind of holding back that information, because like at the time it was like that information was money to a lot of people, and to me, I was teaching at the time, but why I put those out, I really just wanted to help my students. Because like I said, this was around 2009 when I started releasing my YouTube tutorials on house dance. In 2009, California at the time, or Northern California at the very least, still didn't have house dance like we have it now. So I was tired of teaching the same moves every week. Like every week is like, okay, let's learn how to do this move. I taught it before, but it's like, you guys don't have it down yet. So eventually I was like, you know what? I'm tired of, I want to progress. I want to be able to teach like more complicated things and not have to go through the same moves all the time. So I recorded these videos strictly for my students. And it was about 15 or so videos, 15, 20, I don't even remember now, of these tutorial videos. And I told them like, hey, I uploaded these videos privately on YouTube, and you can check them out if you want to learn these moves without having to like come to my class every week and have to go over them again, So my students were like, wow, your tutorials are really good. You should release this to the public. And I was like, what? And at the time, I guess I've been dancing house for almost 10 years, right? But it's like I was taking it really seriously. And at the time, I just felt like kind of unworthy to release these videos at the time. I was like, what will the pioneers say? What will anybody say about this? What will people think if I just came out there and started acting like the authority on these moves, right? So I was pretty scared. I didn't want any backlash, but they convinced me. They're all like, no, you got to do it. It'll help people. And when I heard that, like, help people, okay, I want to help people. So I started releasing it little by little, like probably 3. I released 3 of the videos, I think, at first, to see what people would do, right? But I didn't advertise it. I was just like, I'm gonna just put these out, and I labeled them house dance tutorial. And then, the move. And I got the names of the moves through the people that taught me. I just copied the names of the moves and the moves themselves. I taught them, and people started finding these tutorials from somewhere. Like I didn't even advertise them, but people were watching them, commenting on the videos, and subscribing to my YouTube channel. And after the first month, I had 300 subscribers out of nowhere, which at the time was like, whoa, 300. Wow, that's cool. And after that, it just kind of grew from there. Like it never went under 300. It didn't go under 300 after that. It just went 300 and above for like, even till now. I have like and I think the most in 1 month has been like 1,500 subscribers or something like that, but it just never went down. And people kept finding these. And what I learned later on was that people were looking for these at the exact same time that I uploaded them. So there were people all around the world that was curious about this dance, and they were looking for a way to learn it. And I just happened to upload these videos, and I kind of became that guy. So a lot of the reason why, it's like I still teach today was because of that, otherwise I just would have been another dancer that probably like quit several years later after reaching what I thought would be my peak or something, you know what I mean? But that kept me going, that kept me going as a dancer, and, it keeps me going till today, it's what I do.
What are some things or maybe some places that the online portion has taken you to or let you experience that maybe was beyond your imagination before?
Well, you know what? The first place it took me actually was Indonesia. And at the time, I knew nothing about Indonesia. I didn't even know it was in Asia. So it was crazy because I got contacted by people that,
like on YouTube, they contacted you?
By email, actually.
Okay.
And I believe it was Lintang. I still keep in touch with her, by the way. And this was like in 2000. I think this was in 2009 or 10. Oh, 2010. Lintang hit me up on by email and said that because at the time I was visiting the Philippines again. I'm in the Philippines a lot, or was. Every couple of years or so I would be back, if not every year. But she found that I was going to be in the Philippines at the time, so she thought it'd be a good idea to just fly me out to Indonesia while I was in the Philippines. So I was like, okay, let's do it, So while I was in the Philippines, they bought me a ticket, brought me to Indonesia. And then when I asked them, like, so why do you want me to teach? And they're all like, are you kidding? We watch your videos. I was like, my videos? Like, you watch my videos? That's crazy. And then from then on, I was like, wow, those videos did something, like it made people want to learn, and it made people learn about me, And actually, what happened in the very beginning was when I uploaded those first 15 or so videos, I didn't touch them for a couple of years. But after I went to Indonesia, I was like, okay, you know what? I realized that, I should have thought about this before, but based on the amount of people that have been subscribing to my YouTube, there are people watching this around the world. So I'm going to keep going, So I started teaching more after that. But back to like where it's taken me when I went to Indonesia, my goodness, like they had this whole show that was kind of like centered around like me being there, which was so crazy. So we went into like a full-on studio, and then I basically got interviewed like talk show style. Like I was like sitting, and then there was an audience, and there was like, like TV cameras. And it didn't get on TV, but they did make a recording. So it was a big deal, And I was like, wow, that was kind of like, I felt like so important, at the time. So after that, I started teaching more, and then there was just more evidence that that people were seeing these videos after I started getting invited to even more countries. And I think for me, that's what I value the most, is being able to go to other countries to teach, because I really love traveling and really love experiencing new cultures and seeing things that are new to me. So to me, that was the best part. And that was the thing that I was like, wow, that's beyond my wildest dreams, to be flown out for stuff like this and to be considered somebody who's like important in the scene to some people, because before that I didn't really have dreams. I just was there to keep going, I just had this kind of like, one track mind that I wanted to become the best dancer I could be. And the fact that it was getting me to other places that I wasn't prepared for, or I wasn't looking forward into being, what's that? It was really surprising and a really like a great experience, you know?
Yeah. I want to bring something up that you mentioned earlier when you were first getting ready to upload the videos to YouTube or releasing it publicly at least.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about not being sure what the pioneers were gonna think or maybe getting pushback. And I think that's very true in dance or house dance culture, and I think that's probably true in other disciplines as well, whether it's a martial art or whether it's something where it's built on a lot of circumstance of the times, you know?
Yeah.
So was there a point where you knew like, or you got some kind of confirmation that everything was cool, or has that ever been kind of notified for you?
You know, I think it started dawn on me when I got very little backlash. I was like surprised that not many people would say anything, you know? And up until you know how YouTube started removing the dislikes on videos.
Mm-hmm.
Up until then, it was like I had like a very high likes to dislikes ratio. Like not many people like disliked the videos. Not many people came in there to hate.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like you did something wrong. Like nobody's ever said that. And that kind of told me that, okay, I'm not doing the worst job at this. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing something right. So that kept me going. And plus I personally know for myself that I'm very passionate about this dance. And I took the time that most people didn't take to like really break down these movements for other people and really find the best way to teach these movements, you know, for, you know, in terms of how I see it, you know, best is in like how I see it. Through the years, it's just like nobody was really saying anything. And I think it really, what really confirmed it for me was when Cricket told me like, good job. I was like, oh, you know, like
specifically about the online videos.
Yeah. Specifically about the online videos. Like I was in New York, and Cricket was holding these practices. I'm not sure if he still does, but he was holding these Sunday. I believe they were on Sunday or Wednesday, something like that. But these sessions.
I think I actually went to one when I was in New York.
Yeah, I've gone a few, and then I went to in 2016. I went to one, and he actually at the end of the session, he actually went out of his way to thank me. He's all like, "Hey," and you know, I forgot his exact words, but it was to show appreciation to me in front of all these New Yorkers. I was like embarrassed. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, you know what? The dance is from here. I'm just relaying information that you have gifted to me. You know what I mean? This was something I learned from New York, and, you know, like I have everybody to thank for that. I just kind of like took it, filtered it in my own way, and then put it out to people so that they can understand what I'm seeing, you know, the beauty that I learned, you know? So when Cricket thanked me and the fact that, you know, a lot of my mentors were just like, were still cool with me, you know, and didn't look at me like, oh, I can't believe what you did, you know, that just told me like, okay, you know, like I did something that was I wouldn't say right, but that, you know, didn't really rub everybody the wrong way, you know?
Yeah. Did you ever see that video on Expert Village on?
Oh man, have I? Yeah.
Yes. I'm sure if you're in the scene, everyone has seen it at some point. But what are some things that you can recommend to someone, say if they're going down a path of learning an art form, right, and they're not sure whether they should move on with trying new delivery platforms? Because in your case, it seems to be working out very well, and it seems to be also validate and improve. But in the case of whoever did that Expert Village video, obviously it got like hate from everybody, and I think rightfully so. So like, how can a new person distinguish which side of the fence they're on?
Yeah, you know, that's that's pretty tough, especially nowadays with
Yeah.
YouTube removing the dislikes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You can't really tell. You can't really tell who you should be learning from as much anymore, because like it's so saturated now with everybody wanting to teach, and a lot of people wanting to make careers out of this, And I really think that doing your research, or just kind of like looking into it, in the beginning, and finding out what's around you first, so that you could kind of branch out from there, is important. You could also, I don't know, like for me personally, when I started to teach myself, I realized that it was kind of like a double-edged sword. For one, I developed a lot of my own thinking very early on, because I was teaching myself. So I became my own teacher. So I became a teacher through teaching myself. But the other side of that was, it took me so long to learn, because there was so much trial and error, which is also a good thing for my teaching, because of the trial and error, I pretty much can, like fix when something is wrong with somebody's movement. I'm all like, oh yeah, like as soon as I see it, like, okay, here's what you need to do with that, But it took me a long time to learn. So I do recommend that if you want to learn something, find a good teacher, find a good teacher. But knowing if the teacher is good or not, I think that's something that you're going to have to really sit down and kind of research, and who you're learning from. And if you feel that person, if you really like what that person is doing, maybe you could like go under them for now, and then from there, like see if you want to continue with that teacher when you started finding more people through that person.
Yeah, speaking of finding a good teacher, something I've noticed in different fields that I'm in
Mhm.
is what I believe to be a qualified person. Usually, they have a very high ability to be articulate.
Mhm. Yeah.
Even if I don't know what's going on, if I can sense like a high level of articulation where it makes sense and is very compartmentalized or organized,
Yeah.
that's usually one of my senses for, okay, I should probably listen to this person, because it's not just general speak. It's actually very useful and tailored information.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I really think it depends on the way you learn,
Mm-hmm.
because some people really learn through like somebody being able to articulate what they're doing, and some people learn by just like grunts and noises. You know what I mean? Like just being there. Like it depends on really like the way you learn. But for me, I agree with you. That's the type of people I learn from best are those that are able to like express what they're doing and really break it down for people without like making it more confusing, without like over talking, or just kind of like if the words are able to help you in the process, then that person's words, like that to me, that makes like a good teacher.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So would you say that the online teaching platform is your main way going forward, pretty much your career, or is it like
Yeah.
and if so, when did you decide to take it seriously on that level, from uploading videos casually to you're pretty much a whole like platform nowadays, right? With thousands of
Yeah.
videos, it's insane.
Yeah, I do have thousands of videos, which is crazy. And I actually have an earlier, my website is house-dance.com.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, before the current iteration of my online course, I had online classes. And those online classes were just kind of like random things every week that I would put out. And in those original online classes, I have over 1,000 videos. And those videos are not public till even today. So I have 1,000 videos that just kind of lay around from the past years. You know what I mean? So for me, like that's how seriously I've taken it. And this is like this is like the main part of my career is the online thing. Doing in-person stuff to connect is important for me too. But in terms of like what I take the most serious, it's the online platform. And it's worked great for me. For me, it might not work great for everybody. I know some people that have tried to teach online and really hated it. I've also seen people try to learn from online and didn't like it as much. But for me, this is it. You're like, this is what I like doing.
Do you feel like it hits certain points about your personality outside of dance? Because I think some people like touching somebody and feeling being in person, whereas someone can be like, okay, just give me the information, I'll be on my own. So do you think the online portion touches like some of that personality traits?
Exactly. Actually, you're totally right. I'm an introvert, and I love teaching in person. Right. But I also really love documenting what I teach, like online, so being able to like mix the experience and still be able to teach, but like not always have it in person is great for me. I do like learning on my own. And I know there are a lot of people that like learning on their own and not embarrass themselves in front of others. For me, learning in front of people is a little bit embarrassing, admittedly. But it's not like that. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out and like learn in front of people. But for me, it's just like I've got some past stuff that like that I needed to deal with. So I like learning on my own and didn't want to learn in front of people when I'm a beginner at something, So I know there are people that are like that, and I kind of cater to those people who like want as little communication as possible. That people that just want to kind of learn anonymously. But I do have a lot of social people I do have a lot of social students too that want to use it to learn so that they can be accepted in a more social setting with their dance. So let's say like somebody's like, I really love what they're doing in like that city when it comes to their dancing. I want to be able to dance with them and do house dance with them, So they learn off my videos like somewhere else and then come in and they're ready, they're like ready to dance with other people.
Yeah. Back when I was living in San Diego and doing Airbnb, one of my guests actually was a participant in your class. I don't know if you remember him, Joe Montague.
Oh yeah, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, I by the way, Joe's my homie. I still keep in touch with him to this day.
Yeah. Shout out to Joe. But I feel like that situation helped me understand there's so much necessity and maybe possibility and nuance in how people learn and their circumstance. I believe at the time Joe was a traveling nurse, so he can't just like go to all the places where all these teachers are, but he's going to be changing from cities to cities a lot, and then his schedule might be like night shift or morning shift, whatever So he was really using their garage space or our studio space to train with your videos actually on his own time, and that was incredible to see that. Like I'm like, okay, this is a demographic or a profile I didn't really know to consider before, right? Because when I think of dance, I think of like, okay, yeah, you go to take classes, you go to the sessions, but that's not always available to everybody. Yeah.
By the way, back to one of your other questions. When did I start taking it more seriously? I started teaching online and getting paid for it, I guess I would say, in 2014. So from 2009 to 2014, I was doing it for free, and I actually preferred it that way. One of my students, Aaron, he was with me at Dance Attack, which is the first place I started teaching at in California. He was one of my students, and I would describe like dance to him as something that kind of like got him out of a dark place at the time. And he said, like, you know what? Like, you're teaching these things online. You should be making money from this. And I was like,
Did you have any issues with making money out of something you're passionate with? Because when I was going down that path, that was a big concept I had to work around, like being able to charge and knowing how to value it. That was, what's your process with that?
I had a huge problem with it, actually, initially. I had to fight Aaron. I mean, I didn't have to, but I fought him because of all the stuff he was telling me. And he's all like, you should make money from this. And I was like, nah, like I'm fine where I am. Like I'll make money some other way, So he kept telling me like, no, dude, like you have something that people should be paying for. You're giving them a service, you know? And at first I was actually thinking really, really low level, you know what I mean? I'm all like, okay, I could sell DVDs, you know, back then things were, you know, and then he said like, no, you could do better, you know, like you can do better than just selling a DVD and then that's it for people, you know what I mean? You can make a career out of this. And, you know, at first I was really like, no, you know what? Conversation's over. I'm not going to do any of that. But then, you know, the more I thought about it, I'm all like, you know, maybe I should try what he's telling me, because he was, you know, at the time he was like, he would kind of like help people start businesses. And then like, I'm like thinking to myself, like, why am I not listening to this person? Right. So I said, you know what? Okay. You know, let's do something. Let's go to the next level. How would I get to that what you're talking about? He's all like, okay, what I'd like you to do first is, you know, tell people that you basically want to keep in touch with them. So like make a mailing list or something. And from then on, you know, like I created a mailing list, and then I started to keep in touch with people through my mailing list, you know, and that's how I kind of like gathered the audience that I had at the time. And then eventually, Aaron just kind of taught me little by little how to create my business. He basically gave me a template. So from the mailing list, I started keeping in touch with my audience, and then he told me like come out with a product, and that's how it took me 6 months to come up with what I called back then the Footwork Style Mastery Course. So it was the footwork style of house dance. So which, you know, sounds kind of redundant, but house dance could look like other things to different people depending on who you ask. You know, it could be like jacking, but to me, it's footwork, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had that experience before where with certain dances, it's very obvious that two people are doing the same styles, but within house, two people can be dancing next to each other and you're like, whoa, it's the same style.
Yeah, exactly. So it's from 6 months of studying the people I learned from, studying what I do myself, I came up with a Footwork Style Mastery Course, which is actually just a 2.5 hour video or series of videos teaching you how to freestyle from the ground up. So in the beginning, I teach one move, and then from there, I came up with basically this style of teaching where I teach transitions rather than moves. Because a lot of teachers out there, they'll teach you moves, right? And then they'll say, okay, now figure out the freestyle yourself. With me, I really wanted to hold my students' hands, and it's like, here's exactly how you get from point A to point B. Here's how you do what I do. What is it? The hair club for men, you know, like I'm not only the president, I'm also a client sort of thing. By teaching that way, I actually started teaching. I started dancing more like the way I taught, right? So to me, it just confirmed like, wow, teaching this way for myself, it really works, you know? Like people were able to learn how to freestyle by watching this 2-hour video. Like within a week, they get the mentality of like, that's how I freestyle. I don't just, because a lot of people, you know, when figuring out how to freestyle, it's like, how do I get from one move to another? I know there are different moves, but how do I go in between? So the whole point of freestyle, of the Footwork Style Mastery Course, was to teach transitions so that you can go from one move to another and with flow, you know?
That's a really good point. I've noticed that outside of dance, but in other communication platforms, such as writing, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes the best essays aren't necessarily the most complicated ones, but it leads you from one idea to the next, meaning transitions, and the reader is able to follow what's happening, and they're able to walk away with something that they can internalize or relate to. Mm-hmm. Right. So would you say that's kind of what was one of the things that you were passing on to your students, the ability to connect different things together? Yes,
exactly. And I was seeing students learn so fast from that series of videos. So So basically, from that series of videos, I came out with online classes, which was like a weekly thing. So it was kind of like learn from home, learn the stuff that I actually teach in the studios, except you're learning it from home. So I would teach like choreography, random moves here and there that you can add to your freestyle that you learn through the Footwork Style Mastery course. So from there, I built up like my students, and it just kept going from there. As the years go on, I get like new students in, and then older students kind of graduate out of it and become like either their own people or they move on to something else and stuff like that. So it's become what it is now. From there.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a very intentional profile that the online class, at least your platform, is meant for. Who do you think that the person is?
The thing is, I never chose for myself who the target audience was.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of put out something, and it started attracting a certain target audience.
Yeah,
right?
What is that target?
And that audience seems to be a lot of them are people that want to be able to teach, but also a lot of them are like, what's crazy is a lot of them are like doctors, scientists, lawyers who just want to release, who just want to be able to like move and want to learn something that's concrete, and not be given like, here's some information, now figure it out yourself. Because the whole thing with me and the way I taught was like, I'm going to give you an information, I'm going to process it for you so that you can just take it in and do exactly what is taught, and you'll learn how to dance from there. You learn how to freestyle. So I was getting a lot of people that weren't necessarily dancers, but people who wanted to have a release and learn how to dance. I also did get a lot of dancers, and I did get a lot of people who wanted to eventually even like make a career in dance. And it all worked out for every type of those, because they all saw something in it, They all were able to come away with something from what I taught, whether it's like how to teach or just having fun and learning how to move so that you can dance with other people.
There's something to be said about say a master teacher comes into the city, and then he or she will have a pop-up workshop. And so if that is related to a book, let's say we're reading a book, right? It's like they give an excerpt of the book, whereas you're more giving a complete guided manual. Like chapter 1, we're going to be working on this. Chapter 2, we're going to be working on this. And it's there's a clear progression of concepts, maybe because I think maybe just by platform or by availability, because one person in 1 hour can only do so much if they're there one time a year, right?
That's exactly right. Like I organized it so that people can learn from the bottom up, and and learn it from just that source, and they're not really missing any information. Of course, it's not all the information. You could learn a lot more, right, in person, but this was enough for you to be able to look like you already learned from in-person people. So that started in 2014. And actually in 2018, four years later, after 4 years of teaching the online classes, I revised it to be an online course. So I took the Footwork Style Mastery course and turned it into a 15-week module as part of my 50-week course. So my course, I turned everything into 50 weeks of content, but within those 50 weeks, 15 weeks of it were focused on the footwork style. So I turned that little 2.5-hour video into 15 weeks of content for people to learn. And it was even more progressive. Like every week you would learn some dance moves, learn how to transition between those dance moves. And then next week we build on top of that. And I talked more about not just moves, but also musicality and how to project and have confidence, and also like how to end your rounds and how to start them. So it was a lot more in depth, It was not just like learning kind of like the base, but it was like really trying to go through everything that I've gone through in my experience.
Would you say that the amount of volume is what led to your success, or was it just because your videos are so well produced? What are the main ingredients of how far have you come?
Okay, so I think it mainly has to do with I was one of the first people to do this. I was one of the first people to really start teaching online, and I became kind of like people's source in the beginning, and just kind of like the inertia just kept going. Like the momentum was just always there for me for some reason. So from 2009 and on, I just was that guy. Like, oh, you want to learn online how to house dance online? The Jardy, So on top of that, I was really taking the production side really seriously too. So there was that, The production side, I was really taking, I take that seriously till today. Like I said, like I really want the best quality, like I really focus on the equipment that I have too,
Yeah, as somebody else who appreciates dance, but also photography and technology, I definitely want to express my appreciation to you for having high production videos.
Oh.
Sometimes it drives me crazy to see such amazing art forms not be documented properly.
Oh, yeah.
It seriously drives me crazy. Even a little thing as people are at events and they're recording whatever is happening, or maybe it's just in real life in portrait mode, right? And I'm like, just turn, just please turn.
Yeah. Yeah. With me, I just, I really love the artistic part of doing the production side too. And with me, like I said, I don't like to learn in front of people, right? So another thing is that I didn't like relying on people for like certain things. Like I felt like if you want to do it right, do it yourself. You know what I mean? So that's how I've always been interested in photography, but when videography came, I wanted to be the best I could be at that too, and be able to like do it myself without relying on somebody else taking the video for me. Cause that's money too, like you can't ask every week, like, can you take a video of me, like a really high quality professional looking video that, it's like, you could learn that yourself. You could be doing it yourself. And nowadays it's a lot easier. You could even do it on your phones now. But back then it was a lot harder, to get quality video.
Through the online platform, now you got me curious. I wonder if through the online platform, it's helped you with more self-acceptance in the fact that now you're exposed to so many other people that also like learning on their own, not meaning learning in private, right? Did you ever feel like you might have been the only one, but now there's more people, or?
I've always kind of assumed that a lot of people would be like me.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And that there's a lot of people of every type, and I've just catered to the ones that learn the way I like to learn, and do the things that I like to do. So, I what really gave me some self-acceptance was actually other people accepting me too, because, what's that quote? Like, it takes a village to raise a child, right? I felt like when people started supporting me, I started believing more in myself, because I didn't know that I had certain like gifts to give to people. I just didn't know. I was just doing my thing. You know what I mean? So when people said like, you know what, you really have a knack for this. You're really talented at what you do. And every time I heard that for the first time, I was like, really? I thought I was just doing me. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of like, I'm not paying attention to that. I'm just trying to be the best that I could be. I didn't know that you actually valued that too. So when people started relying on me for the help, that's what really kept me going, because a lot of the times I won't do something for myself, I'll do it because somebody really needs me,
So you function better when serving others.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Like, it really makes me feel good when I've helped somebody get to a certain point in their lives. And nowadays, like, I feel like I've helped a lot of people get to better places in their lives because of what I've taught, and because of, like dance,
Yeah. Did you ever get any pushback for wanting to pursue dance within your family? The reason why I ask is in a lot of families, depending on the national ethnicity, it might be like, oh yeah, dance isn't a real career. But I also know that in the Philippines culture, dance is kind of like the stereotype, So does that work in your favor or against it?
Let me tell you
how does that
something,
work?
right?
Yeah.
When my mom brought me here when I was 10, I think it was 10 or 9, right? She wanted me to just be me, like she didn't say like, you got to be this, you got to be that, and when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor. The- I like doctors, but that would never be me. You know what I mean? It's because like I have the heart of an artist, So it's like as I grew older, I started finding out who I wanted to be, right? But in the Philippines, it's like you absolutely cannot take dancing as a career. To most people think that way. Like, aren't you too old to be dancing? Like, what are you gonna keep dancing the rest of your life? So that's not as accepted in the Philippines.
Interesting.
Yeah, in the Philippines, it's like it's no.
So you're saying even though that's the stereotype, it's like the opposite within the culture.
Yeah, and that's because Filipino-Americans are very different from Filipinos in the Philippines. And what I mean is, no, I shouldn't say that because we're a lot more alike than we think. What it is like the older generation is very different from the younger generation. And there's even more difference between like Filipino-Americans who are young and Filipinos in the Philippines who are like boomer age. You know what I mean? When they're in their 60s, they absolutely do not accept that you can be an artist as a career. They don't. But my mom never gave me any, never really got on my case about that.
Mm-hmm.
She just knew that my heart was somewhere else. Like that I needed to just go through my process, and she just kind of believed that I was gonna do something right eventually. And just gave me kind of like the freedom to find who I wanted to be. So in terms of my family, it was always like accepted. My little brother, Natron, who a lot of people are surprised that I'm brothers with, but he's a b-boy till today, and he's even though that's not his like main career, he's like a wedding videographer. See, videography and dancing just runs in the family. But he actually became like worldwide known well before I did at what he did. So dancing was just like kind of like something that was accepted in my family and just kind of ran in my family. Like my cousins were dancers. So in the US, my family here, they didn't really say anything. But in the Philippines, like, oh yeah, I've heard I got told some stuff by like my aunt, like, what are you doing still dancing? So it depends really on where. But one thing is that even Filipinos in the Philippines, many of them don't believe that they can, the younger people, many of them don't believe that they can pursue a career in dancing because of how the older generation treats it. It's kind of like the country doesn't really value it as much as the US does, or like places like Europe.
So what's on the horizon, and where do you see yourself and your business in 5 to 10 years?
In 5 to 10 years, I hope to be doing what I'm doing for as long as possible, of course. But I'm very well aware that the body ages, and newer dancers come into the picture. So I'm just gonna keep doing what I do and keep sharing the love that I'm sharing, and just take it day by day, year by year, and see where it leads me. I've accomplished a lot of the stuff that I didn't even think about accomplishing when I first started dancing. It just kind of came by like as an accident, and I'm willing to have those kind of like positive accidents happen in the future. So if something comes along that progresses what I'm doing now, then I'm all for that. But as of now, my only current plans is like I'm gonna do more of what I'm doing, and also I'm gonna expand it to include other dance forms. So I haven't done that yet. Right now, I only teach house, but I want other people to kind of teach in my format. I've already talked to like people, we just haven't started on the work, but to teach in my format so that they have their own course and they have their own way of like, making money through what they do too,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the more options there are, it's just better for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think it's taking anything away from teachers who are teaching in public or not public in person in classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it might even bring them more students by these online demographic being able to be exposed to it, right? So yeah, I think it just helps everybody.
I really agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think I do because, well, the mentality was when I first started teaching online that there were people that thought like, aren't you taking people's businesses away or business away from aren't you taking business away from people who do this as a form of like, a career for them, because you're teaching everything for free, right? But what actually happened was it helped spread the dance around the world to the point where everybody kind of benefited from it, and also for me, I'm not out there to take everything. You know what I mean? I'm there to share, and whatever comes my way, okay, comes my way. You know what I mean? I even limit the amount of students I get, like every time I have a sign up for my online course. So I really think that it has helped spread house dance all around the world to the point where a lot of people are better off because of house dance.
Yeah, in some ways, I think it's similar to hearing a song on the radio. Whereas when anyone can be in a store in your car, it's very easy to hear music nowadays, and it can be argued that maybe there's less album sales, right?
Mhm.
But it can also be argued that those people would have never bought an album anyways, and now you're exposing that artist, and eventually they're going to come either see your show or be a fan for life, and kind
Yeah.
of tie in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think just being able to expose an art form so that other people can have access to it just helps the world in general,
Mhm.
Like the more people are doing it, the better off the better off we all are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what can you say to the students who are taking the online portion, or just maybe online demographic in general? What are some nuggets you can give away from the lessons you had early on in person? Because this is a very in-person social dance, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, like, how can someone who does online get sort of the same lessons or the same understandings?
Well, it really depends on where they want to be someday. If they want to use it as a social dance, what I would tell them is like, go out there and socialize then,
Hmm.
go out there and find people who do this dance, or just find people who are even just dancing and dance with them. And then there are people who learn these and want to keep dancing only online, and that's cool too. If you're able to learn like a dance fully by watching it online, amazing. But it's like the way I look at it is there's always pieces missing when you're learning only online, and that you can get those pieces so easily if you just went and experienced it in person once. Like right away, a lot of things will click. So as with any social dances, I would recommend that you socialize. I mean, as introverted as I am, I would never ever just stay dancing in front of a camera.
Hmm.
There are days where I yearn dancing with other people too, and I think everybody needs to experience that.
Have you thought about doing any events where you gather your students in one place, or?
Yeah, I've thought about that. I did think about that, and I was thinking about that a lot. And then came the pandemic, and then everything just kind of whoop, so I haven't thought about it in a while because I
2 years, right?
Yeah, it's been two
Right.
because in 2018 that's when I started my my new course, right? That's when I revised it. By the way, I got to give credit to Mylin. Mylin was the one that actually was the mastermind behind like the new course, because she's very academic, very smart, and then she said like, why don't we turn it into more of a course rather than these random videos that you do? I'm like, and at first I fought that too. I fight everybody on their ideas at first, but eventually I was like, okay, let's try it, and it's like it worked. Whatever her idea was, it's like it really changed like the face of like the way I present the information to the world now. So
So great segue. Let's talk about COVID and how that affected either you as an artist or you as a business. Like, how have you been these past 2 years?
to be honest, with COVID, I was doing the exact same thing that I was doing before, except I was just going out less and partying less, But in terms of like my business, it stayed the same. Stayed the same as in like I still kept doing what I was doing, and actually a lot more people were looking into like online platforms. So it's been it's been a terrible couple of years in terms of the social part, but in terms of the online part, it's like everything I would have asked for. So in that way, like the online part is a success. But in terms of like dancing in person, it's like I'm waiting for the day when we could all do that again, because I really I need that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Would you say, or would it be fair to say that COVID solidified the need for an online platform?
I would say it really was it shined the light on the subject that there is value in online learning, because I think before that I've always had enough students where I felt like happy about the amount of people I was teaching online. But I think once COVID came around, people were like, you know what, there needs to be more ways to learn online, because like now I'm afraid to be outside, or I'm afraid to be out and like learning in person in like enclosed spaces. And then there are people with also like health problems that don't want to risk whatever they have by going out there too. So it only helped the online learning thing. So a lot of people were just looking for that, and I was already there. I was already ready for them to like, hey, I've been doing this, so like learn from me.
What are some things that you tried that maybe you can offer other um, businesses, whether it's artistic or otherwise, that maybe they should avoid because it didn't yield what you thought it would?
And the thing I learned, Zoom classes. Zoom classes are not great.
Okay.
There's so many, and like you see how prepared you were for this interview. You got all the equipment. When it came to the Zoom classes, I got the equipment too. Like I bought all the equipment. I had like what's that, like an audio interface and all that to try to get the best audio. Thing is, online teaching is just like it just resorts to low quality, because it also it's dependent on people's internet access or
Yeah.
internet speed too. You know what I mean? So no matter what, it just never feels good enough.
Yeah,
You know?
that's something I learned about Zoom is they limited everyone to standard definitions, right? Unless you have a pro account, but that's only 720p for one speaker at a time, and you can't even get 1080p unless you're on their business account or enterprise account, which is something like I think $100 a month.
Yeah. See, and the thing is, when I was teaching on Zoom, I actually was teaching my current students for free.
Mm-hmm.
I just added that in as in like, I know you guys are probably kind of like yearning to be able to talk to people because you're all avoiding each other in person. This was in the beginning. Do you remember in the beginning of the pandemic, everybody wanted to teach online, right? Everybody was trying to teach on Zoom, and I jumped in on it. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll try it, because my students need to socialize too, So I started teaching on Zoom, and what's that? It was actually uh, the worst part of of my online course because nobody really wanted to go to that. Like I'd have like 2 students, 3 students out of like the many that were actually taking the course. Like nobody was really coming. And that's when I realized, like, okay, like it's not the same as being in person, and you can't rewind. And the most of the time, the sound is like not synced,
That's very
So
important.
yeah,
Very important that movement and sound
it's
are synced.
like, oh man. But I tried my best to get it synced. I did some stuff, but I don't think it was even enough because even just the quality of the video was.
Yeah, and even if you could have like the most banged out setup, it just takes someone else to be streaming on their laptop, and then maybe there's an internet connection lagging, and dance.
Exactly.
They can't see you that well from standing far away, anyways, unless they're hooked up to a TV.
Mm-hmm.
But how probable is that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that try to use the strengths of the platform for what it is, rather than recreate what you're missing on that platform.
Dude, yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. Is that we were all trying to imitate real life, and we can do that. So for me, pre-recorded has always been the strongest. Like pre-recorded, high quality videos that people can watch whenever they have time.
So in that case, the online portion would be like the distribution network, right? And distributing high quality content, and they're being consumed in whatever intervals that the student's ready for, and that's how it's being used versus trying to recreate something that where there's problems inherently in the platform, such as lag. But what about like using other, I guess, teaching styles? Like what have you learned towards that? Because I think in one of your videos you had a thing where you would do a sequence, right? And then you would wait for your students to do the sequence. Yeah.
That's in my online course, there's this back and forth thing where we practice on our freestyles. And how it goes is that I start freestyling first based on the material that we learned for that week. We're just kind of using the material we learned for that week and putting it in our freestyle already and practicing it. So I would freestyle first using those same moves, concepts, whatever. And then I'd give like the other person like 30 or so seconds to freestyle for themselves. And it's like a back and forth. And then I'd be standing there the 30 seconds just kind of cheering them on. So a lot of people actually like that because like they were able to practice and, it didn't feel like just lonely, even though it was like pre-recorded, it was something. And another thing that I do in my online course are drills, drilling moves and drilling moves with transitions, so that you just get used to it and you can keep going. You can keep doing it, like you could just rewind, keep doing it, and just keep practicing. So those are 2 things that I do in my current course.
Yeah. And did you get that idea from Mylene as well, or like, where did that presentation came
That is actually, yes, that's also from Mylene. Yeah, and I really got to thank her. She totally just expanded whatever I was already working on and just made it so much better. And yeah, that was totally her idea, the back and forth thing, and it's a really cool feature actually.
Would you say that the scene has changed much over the years from when you first started to where it is now?
Oh man.
And how do you think it's shaping up for the future? Like, do you think clubs and sessions will one day kind of fade out just because the culture is changing, of more people being more spread out, and there's things like YouTube, Facebook?
I think it was Brooklyn Terry that had it on his Instagram story where, where when there was the Spanish flu in 1918, there was a Spanish flu that killed, I think maybe 2 million people or more. I don't know the exact number, but it was a pandemic just like we had today. And what happened after the Spanish flu was the Roaring 20s. So basically, people with the pent up energy there was another, you know what I mean? Like everybody was partying for years after that. I'm hoping the same thing happens after we, get through this pandemic, which it looks like we're at the tail end of it. It's no longer a pandemic, but an endemic. But I'm hoping the same thing happens where, like people get back to socializing. Of course, there will always be a demand for online learning. But I really hope that it's for everybody's sake that we still value that we're still going to value human interaction after this,
Mm-hmm.
because for me, that's where I came from. I came from social dance. And for to answer your question, hell yeah, it's different. It's so different nowadays, because back then we weren't reliant on our electronics to spread whatever we were doing, and nowadays it feels like people can just rely on just having a ring light and a phone and put out content.
If there's something I feel like is the heart of these changes, and that's a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
So why I feel that way is because let's say you're playing video games or you're on the computer, right? So it's very obvious and intentional when you're doing those activities. So you could be on the couch watching a movie or playing PS5 or in your bedroom on the computer, but that activity ends as soon as you leave that place, as soon as you go into the bathroom, into the car, or outside. But how smartphones different is we can do all these things, but it's always with us, right?
As always, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard stories of young people not being able to separate from the smartphones and having a lot of anxiety and not having the ability to really connect properly, And one thing I never thought I'd be glad about is I'm glad I grew up during a time without smartphones. Like I know how to use them nowadays, right?
Yeah.
But I'm glad it wasn't around when I was like 5 years old, and it's
Yeah.
like been my best friend all my life,
Yeah. It's it's a real addiction is a real disease, like, and a lot of young, even toddlers are getting into using iPads way too early and getting hooked on just looking at stuff all the time and getting, getting their dopamine fix over, throughout the day. There's no more boredom, and boredom is actually where a lot of creativity comes in, and a lot of, you get new ideas and you find out what things you want to try. But because you're constantly bombarded by information, you don't really have that time to really reflect and really find out what to do next. You're kind of given what to do next, and that's just refresh all day long. So I'm also glad that I didn't grow up in the era of smartphones, and that's because back then, it was like it was truly a social dance, and you couldn't really see these dances unless you went out, or you could watch them on videos. But even then, like, your videos were limited. You couldn't just search online for these videos. You had either you had your 1 or 2 or 3 videotapes that you could watch from with a couple of hours of footage. But if you wanted to keep seeing more, you'd have to see it in person, and and you'd be missing out if you didn't do that back then, because a lot of people were, like, everybody was dancing in person.
Yeah. Do you ever think it's poetic that you start out with videos and your online platforms is all about videos? Like it's kind of full circle, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely why I was able to really teach on video. It's because I learned stuff from videos, and like I said, I was primarily self-taught in the moves, and all of the moves I pretty much learned online. I don't think I learned many movements outside of, like, not online, but through videos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I learned very many moves outside of that, because by the time I started taking classes, or workshops, not weekly classes, because these would be like, New Yorkers wouldn't be in California all the time. By the time I started taking weekly classes from the people I was watching in the videos, I already knew all the moves, and I already knew how to do how to house dance for the most part. But because I had to break down the moves for myself, it was a lot easier for me to pass that down to the newer generation who were looking to learn.
Yeah, speaking of New York, I think New York is still a big, and hopefully will always be a big factor in one's journey in dance. When do you recommend someone should go there to experience all the spectrum of New York?
Honestly, I think if you learn a couple of house dance moves and you really want to see what it's really like in person, go right away. Don't waste time. Just go.
Okay.
Even if you don't know much, still just go to experience it. Now I don't know how it's like there right now. I don't know if clubs are open. I'm not in touch with that right now. I don't know what the scene is like right now, but when everything is opened up again and there are no restrictions, then yeah, I recommend you go check it out in person, because in person is an experience that you can't emulate through watching through the screen.
Can you speak a little bit on how to operate respectfully as an outsider coming into a scene, right? So, say whoever is going to New York, what are some things they should keep in mind in order to be welcome into that space?
I would say just be respectful. I think everybody knows how to be respectful. Don't get drunk and then just start doing some random stuff in somebody else's space. I think as somebody who starts out as an outsider, you should always respect the space of the people you're watching and want to learn from. Just be on the outskirts and then watch and just take it in. And really, it's a lot of it is about taking up space. If you're still learning, learn from the people you're learning from, and don't be so ready to put in an opinion that's kind of that you're not ready to put out yet. You know what I mean? Because some people will put out oh, here's what I think about this. It's dude, you just started learning a few months ago. I know you have opinions, but just learn first. You know what I mean? Because that would not, if you were in a martial arts setting, you know what I mean?
I see what
that
you're
would
saying.
be very, very not good for you.
It'd be 1 or 2 black eyes.
Yeah,
away
it's
from.
you don't want to do that. And it's the same. It's the same for these arts. Even though it's these are the things that you could learn in clubs on the street. It doesn't mean that there's any less respect that should be given to the people who have been doing it for very long. These are your teachers, whether you're learning from them directly through their teaching or you're just watching, they're the people that are teaching you,
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is observe your surroundings, including the people in the surroundings and what they're doing. So one example might be there's a circle, people are dancing, but to the untrained eye, it might just seem like anyone can come in, but to the more seasoned person, there's a conversation happening and they just randomly jump in, you're disrupting this conversation.
True.
Right?
True, yeah.
And then the other piece I'm hearing from you is go there to learn and not to prove or to take.
Exactly. It doesn't mean that you should stop yourself from having fun, but really if people are utilizing a space, find out whether you're allowed in that space first, because it's not always the case where you could just jump in and take up space where you don't have experience.
Yeah, I want to circle back to what you mentioned earlier about cricket, how he reshaped your mind, right? Can you speak more on the mindset?
A lot of the stuff cricket was telling me, like I said, cricket is very detail oriented. So the stuff he would tell me, he went down to even the whole okay, here's the posture, and here's where I got the holding a box type posture. A lot of house dancers, they're dancing like they're holding a box, and there are also house dancers that flail their arms everywhere. But how cricket taught me was you have to control your arms, and here's a simple way to do it: hold the box, and then move it around naturally outside of that. So That's one thing. That's one thing I learned, and also the musicality thing. Like the way he told me, like, yeah, you're just speaking in run-on sentences. Put some punctuations in there. That's another thing I learned.
Yeah, I have my own cricket experience. Meeting him some years ago, he took my arm and he went like this. He tapped it. He's like, Vin, when you're dancing the whole time, that's what you are. Meaning, I was very constant, and some ways can be viewed as flatline and not accented.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I have my own experience where cricket is like, hey, you're doing this.
Oh man.
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Cricket's awesome, and I have a lot to thank. Like I don't even know if I'm wording that right, but I appreciate him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for teaching me so much.
Mm-hmm. So Jardy, how can someone best support you nowadays?
Support me. Follow me on Instagram or YouTube and take my online course. Well, support me in that way. But I think I don't know. I don't actually outwardly ask for support by directly asking for support.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've always had my back and like what I do, I think that's all I could ever ask for,
What's your Instagram and YouTube?
So both my YouTube and Instagram are under Jardy Santiago.
Mm-hmm.
So on YouTube, it'd be like youtube.com/Jardy Santiago with no space in between, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Instagram, it's just at Jardy Santiago.
Do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners out there, whether it's somebody first getting into dance, someone who's been doing it for a while, or just someone who has no idea what dance is? Just what are some takeaways that you can offer them?
For people who are just getting into it, one of the most important things is to respect the history of this dance, to respect the history of any dance. I know that as we go from being a beginner to intermediate dancer, a lot of people will start talking like they walk the walk and know everything. That's just how it goes. I've gone through that, and a lot of times that's the point where a lot of people stop listening, and then as they learn more, then they realize like, oh shoot, I should have kept listening, because it takes a long time to really internalize a dance form where like you feel like, okay, I got this, So respect the culture, respect its roots. And for house dance, the way I've always looked at house dance is it is a black dance. All my mentors, my teachers, every single one of them has been black. And the way I used to look at house dance was, and hip hop dance as well. Hip hop, not so much b-boying, but hip hop and house is, I am trying to be black in my movements, So I'm trying to, it's like I really wanted to learn the way black people moved. So just remember that that's also where it came from, and to respect that, and also just respect. Every step of the way, respect the people that came before you, and just keep learning. For people just getting into it, of course, find a good teacher, socialize with your dance. As in, like, don't try not to just keep it in the studio, try not to keep it online, but try to find a community where there's going to be a connection between you and another dancer, so that you can truly feel what it's like to be able to be part of the community rather than to stay an outsider the whole time. So, and within that, of course, keep respecting. That's pretty much what I would say. I'm sure there's more, but like, that's a start.
Yeah, respect the style, the history, the people you're learning from, and their circumstance, and maybe sometimes that's just as important, right? The circumstance and the way in which it came about versus just the movement. It's like, okay, this movement came to be, or this idea came to be, but like, how they come to be. It could be from these things, right? These things need to be understood in order for this movement to be understood. Yeah, definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, context is everything. That's why, like, unless you get the context, you won't fully get the dance, So,
All right, Jardy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
yeah,
Appreciate you having you here, and hopefully we'll see you again in another episode sooner than later.
Of course. I'm always here. Thank you.
All right. Peace out.